Hello, this is the Harbor and Light. I'm Mary. I'll give a conservative take about the world around me. Feedback is immensely important, and feel free to reach out. So some of the audio platforms that I'm on Spreaker, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, just to name a few. And also to add on this, I want to immensely appreciate the sponsor, Molly Biz. And can't stress enough how good these cookies are. And especially since we're getting in the midst of the holiday season, even in the trick-or-treater midst, you have a good little cookie. The warmth of it, it can soothe any little ghoul. All right, and also, I have that promotion, as I said, and you get 10% off. All you got to do is use the code when you check out the Harboring. And they say that it will automatically account on for the discount, or you can also put it in manually. Don't forget the Harboring. That's TheHARBORing. The Harboring. All right, so on to the show here. It's Friday, so I'm going to give reflection onto all of my listeners here. So this time, I'm going to get in the midst of talking about the Dutch language. Here we go. All right, so my thoughts before I get into the midst of everything. So, my goodness, the aspects of Dutch, and particularly when we're talking about language, there's many influences when we look at it globally. A lot of influences in that. And it's quite interesting how the aspects of language is something that evolves primarily out of specific reasons. Either if that is the reason for religious, or that is for academia and so forth, which was, from what I understand, the context of the Latin language, particularly with Latin and that distinction between Latin and Spanish language. And then, you go into the aspects of Dutch, and that is the originality of something that is more cultivated to what is primarily centered around their culture. And then again, can't stress enough the aspects of something. Well, food can be really complex, but something in the grand scheme of things, as simple as food, onto something that is more complex as we get into the aspects of political aspects, or we get in the aspects of, even more so with education and so forth. But the language is the sole root of it all, because, it's common sense, but, people who listen to me, y'all have that. But, the mere sense of language doesn't exist without the aspects of experiences. And these personal experiences are influx in the way people communicate with each other and the way that languages are developed. And also, out of this is, which makes even more sense, the cultural understanding of how people are with one another. And the language is just a small glimpse of that, or even more so onto that. If you get even bigger or broader into it, it's more complex than that. With all that said, I'm going to get into the facts and everything about Dutch language. Here we go. And of course, the sources will be provided for you in this episode, okay? So, here we are. Pull that right on up here. Ooh, let's see. Bear with me here. Okay. Here we go. All right. So, the Dutch language originated from the Old Frankish, a Western Germanic language spoken by the Franks in the region of the modern-day Netherlands. Sorry. Excuse me, I'll be right back. All right, so I'd say that again. So the Dutch language originated from the Old Frankish, a West Germanic language spoken by the Franks in the region of modern-day Netherlands. So Belgium and parts of Germany, evolving specifically from the 5th century onward. It developed through stages including Old Dutch, which was in the 6th and 11th centuries, and Middle Dutch, which was in the 12th and 15th centuries, which hence Middle Age, the medieval ages, so forth. So, with standard efforts intensifying in the 16th century, particularly influenced by the Barbadian and the Hollandish dialects, cultivating in the 1637 publication of the standard, excuse me, forgive me for the pronunciation, Standaardvertaling Bible, a key milestone in unifying the language. And so it's quite interesting to add on to this with the aspects of religion and how culture, influences the way in which things are understood. So, for instance, the Ethiopian Bible and, different, in this case, this version of the Bible, there's different depictions of the aspects of Christ or the aspects of different spiritual accounts. And some people want to take the negative spin on it and say, the well-known version of the Bible is that because of, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm just having really a bad frog in my throat and everything. I'll be right back. Okay, so getting back to it, with the aspects. It's just because, to the pretext of the common denominator, white and authoritative, and what is deemed comfortable for their viewpoint, that's the way it is. But no, that's not the case, because For instance, Jesus Christ. There are other books that account and say that this happened and this is the way it happened, and they all unified to say the same thing. And so I think that's the aspects of why the contemporary, well, I wouldn't say contemporary, the origin of the Bible in which we know it is the way it is, because they're pulling from actual accounts. Not to discredit the other aspects of the accounts. It's just, let's be honest with the aspects of humanity. Sometimes people can embellish and a lot of things can happen. And so this is also a pinpoint to the aspects of the cultural value that's underlined in spirituality too, with how people view things and view themselves in the aspects of faith too, which is quite interesting in how everything evolves too. All right, so Dutch, belonging to the West Germanic branch of the Indo-European language family, specifically classified as Low Franken language, with low with reference to low-lying geography of the region of the Franken-Cohen, indicating its roots in a dialect of the Franks. So the earliest known Dutch text is a sentence from the Celtic Law, written in around 510, which reads, the meaning of this, which is free you from the burden. So the term Dutch itself derives from the Middle Dutch and word Duitsk or Duitsk, meaning of the people, or popular, distinguishing it from Latin, which Latin was, as I said before, primarily the language of religion and learning in this time, in this text of time. So the standard Dutch language, while based on the urban dialects of the Holland, was shaped by the influence of the barbarian dialects during the 16th century. So particularly after the fall of the Antwerp in 1585, when many refugees brought their speech to northern provinces. So the language developed, as was the influence by contact with Northern Sea Germanic speakers in the Flanders and the Holland around 17 CE, which helped the Low Franken speech into what became modern Dutch. All right, so I'm going to add on to this here. Here we go. So, all right, so let me get more. So the spoken language exists in great many varieties. It's the standard Dutch, or the standard Doen der Lands, or the Algemeen Netherlands, is used for public and official purposes, so including instruction in schools and universities. A wide variety of local dialects are used in informal situations, such as among friends, family, and others. Yeah, and the aspects of universal tones of how that is underlined with, it's very distinct to know what settings you are and to go accordingly. And what do I mean by this? So, in American English language, slang is typically, or the informal way, or jargon is the informal way of terms of endearing, or knowing that the communication between is both understood between one another, that this is informal, this is not something that is, business related, or, so forth, or something that is otherwise, some unfamiliar with the person, but that there's a means of something that's not so serious either. There's a friendship or commonality or so forth. And this elevates into the different tones that comes with friendships and all levels of that, when it goes into the aspects of the root, you're just friends, or the aspects of More than that, when you're in a relationship, marriage, and so forth. And then also the relationship you have with when you have, if you choose to have children and so forth, and the disposition with that. And then also, when you're meeting people who you would like to become friends with or who you would like to know in an informal meeting, you carry yourself in such ways. And the aspects of this is really rooted in different measures. So this is seen in the distinct in how this flows out in the Dutch language. Hold on just a minute. What, baby? What, baby? I guess she's okay. All right, so get back to this, make it larger here. All right, so I'll go back to what I was saying. So in Belgium, efforts. Let me go back. So family, friends, and others from the same village. These exist in far more variety than those in English or Northern America. So Standard Dutch is characterized grammatically by the loss of the case endings in the nouns. In Belgium, efforts were made to give Dutch equal status with French, which had assumed cultural predominance during the period of the French rule in 1795 through 1814. In 1938, Dutch was made the sole official language of the northern part of Belgium. So the use of Standard Dutch together with the local dialect is much more widespread among the people of the Netherlands than it is in Belgium. So the dialects of the area bounded roughly is by Amsterdam, and I'm getting more specific, by sense with Dutch language, but also more specific with the aspects of my listeners from the Netherlands, and talking about that with the aspects of language here. So the use of Standard Dutch together with the local dialect is much more widespread among the people of the Netherlands than it is in Belgium. The dialect of the area bound roughly by Amsterdam and the Hague of Rotterdam are closely to Standard Dutch than are those of the other dialect areas. So together the English and Frankish and German and Luxembourgish Dutch is a West Germanic language. So it derives from Low Frankican, the speech of the Western Franks, which was restricted through contact with speakers of the North Sea Germanic along the coasts of the Flanders and Holland. So this was around 700 CE. And the earliest documents in Dutch language date from approximately the end of the 12th century, although a few glossy names and occasional words appear somewhat earlier. So I'm going to save this for another time with the aspects of literary works, and I will dive into this, even though not quite a tangent, it relates to the main purpose of this. So literature in its essence is the great embodiment of everything that is of different languages. You become more involved in the aspects and the understanding because you have to be heavily invested in the words in which are presented in the text, whether they are of something that's supposed to be of interpretations, and then they add later on to that also something that what you read to back up and make sure these are relevant sources, because that's one thing that is very important to understand and reflect in the aspects of what is presented in the main culture or main senses of a culture. when you don't have the opportunity to question and understand and to verify and make sure what you're reading is accurate, or learn new things about what you just read and to add on to the conversation or discourse, then that hinders the aspects, again, of evolving and thinking and understanding people and understanding yourself in the midst of how things work in our world. And that's something to really consider and to take when we think about the aspects of how that works with language and meaning and understanding. All right, with this said, this wraps everything up. And of course, I would like to know what you all think. Please feel free to reach out. And the best way to do so is through email. All right, so this wraps everything up. Tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.